Thank you very much, sir. Good luck.
I don't know about you, but I think this evening is turning into a really challenging evening. And I say that in the best possible sense of the word. I mean, we've seen Cormac telling us about the challenge of accepting yourself for who you are. We've just heard Josep Maria explain about the challenge of personal branding. And now I would like to put to you that finding the right challenge in life is partly about asking ourselves the right question. And therefore, I would like to put a question to all of you for us to consider for a moment. And that question is this: is it possible to predict how successful we are going to be? Or to put it in a different way, would it be possible for me to interview each one of you here, assuming that nobody's in a rush to get home tonight, and by the end of that, to be able to identify which ones of you are going to be the most successful for the next 15 years of your life? In order to try and answer this question, I'd like to tell you a story. Would you like to hear a story? Good. Because if you don't, this is going to be a really short presentation. Once upon a time, actually it was in 1995, a group of happy researchers decided to try and answer this very question about personal success. And the way that they tried to answer it was this. They got together about 900 teenagers from as wide a variety of backgrounds as possible. And the first thing that they did was they tried to measure them in every possible way that might affect our success. They measured physical characteristics, for instance, like how high they are. They measured their personality characteristics, for instance, how extrovert they are. And they measured their environment factors, for instance, if they came from a family that had where they had lots of brothers and sisters, this sort of thing. And then once they got all their information, all their measurements, they spent the next 15 years monitoring these teenagers' progress. And every time that they were successful, every time that they achieved a goal that they'd set themselves, whether it was academic success, or professional success, or personal success, then it was written down and taken note. So, at the end of the 15-year period, on the one hand, they had a lot of biodata, and on the other hand, they had a lot of success stories. And they looked to see if there was any correspondence between one set of data and the other. And the interesting thing was that there was one factor which stood out beyond all the others as being a clear indicator to personal success. And that factor was perseverance. Perseverance, whether you call it tenacity, whether you call it grit, whether you call it sheer bloody-mindedness. Perseverance is the ability, the characteristic to set yourself a clear goal and then continue going for that goal through the good times and the bad times until you get what you want. So the next logical question then is this. If perseverance is so important, then is it possible to improve our own powers of perseverance? And the good news for that is that I can guarantee that the answer to that is yes, definitely. I've spent the last few years investigating people who've got great powers of perseverance. I've been collecting the habits of perseverers, and I would like to share 3 of these habits with you this evening that you can take away and try to apply as of now. And each one of these persevering habits can be summarized with one word each. So the first one is the word yet. When you set yourself a goal, if it's an important one that requires perseverance, then at some point you're going to find that you run into a difficult period. You're going to become a bit unmotivated. And at that point, you're going to say something along the lines of, this is too difficult for me, I can't do it. So when you find yourself saying that, say to yourself, I can't do it yet. This is really important. I have a colleague called Annie O'Callaghan, and one of her claims to fame is that between 13 and 17 years of age, she suffered 4 serious traffic accidents. The worst one left her with a broken arm and several fractured ribs. And as you can imagine, she was quite nervous when she was traveling in a car. And when her father said to her, come on, Annie, you're 17 years old now, it's time that you learn to drive, she was petrified. She was a bag of nerves behind the wheel. And for anybody else, they would have said, I can't do this, I'm never going to be a confident driver, I'm going to give up. But the one thing that kept her going was that in her mind she had this image that one day she could be a competent driver. And that's what allowed her to persevere to getting her driving license. It took a long time. It took a lot of persevering. It took 6 years. But she finally, when she was 23 years old, she passed her driving test successfully. And in the 12 years since she passed the driving test, she hasn't had a single traffic accident. Yet. Okay, there's sometimes when you shouldn't use it. It's a very powerful word. You get the idea, yeah? Right. The second word is effort. Effort, of course, is really important for achieving things. But far too often we become obsessed about our goals. Whereas really what we should spend more time focusing on is the effort that we put in to get these goals. Here's something that you can start using straight away. If you ever get invited around to somebody's house for dinner and they insist on dragging their son or daughter out to agonizingly scrape away on some musical instrument, and you find yourself really challenged to think of anything constructively positive to say at the end of it, then say this. Ask them, how long have you been practicing for? Because it doesn't really matter whether they say a few weeks or a few months or even a few years. You can praise that because at the end of the day, it's the effort that the child puts in to learning their instrument which is going to take them on to become a talented musician. And if it works with children, then it can work with adults. So focus on the effort that you are putting in and praise yourself for putting in that effort. The third word is today. In 1999, the American author Stephen King suffered a terrible driving accident. And I would like to make it categorically clear that Annie O'Callaghan's family were nowhere near when it happened, right? Just let us get that straight. He spent a lot of time recovering at home from his accident. And while he was recovering, he wrote and published one of his best books, which is called On Writing. Has anybody read that? No? It's an excellent book, especially if you're interested in writing yourself. And one of the key pieces of advice that he gives is that the most important characteristic of being a successful writer is to sit down and write every single day. Okay. Now, there's nothing particularly novel about the idea that perseverance is doing something every single day. But to put Stephen King's words in a slightly different way, what it means is that it means that you should do whatever it is to achieve your goal today. Because today is the first link of the chain of perseverance for every other day. So if you have a goal that to you is really important, then when you get home tonight and you're getting ready to go to bed, ask yourself this question. Say, what is it that I've done today that's taking me a little bit closer towards my goal? And if the answer is not a lot, then I'm afraid your powers of perseverance could be improved. Now, this sounds very nice in theory, but does it work in practice? Well, as I said, I've spent the last few years collecting habits of perseverance, and I've been applying them to myself. I applied it to writing, and last year I managed to become a successful published author, which is fantastic. After I did that, I applied my powers of perseverance to losing some weight. And in the last 6 months, I've managed to lose 15 kilos of body mass. That's 26 pints of body fat. My wife, who's sitting in the audience over there, she can testify to all of this. It's true. And now, I've just started another project where I've given myself 5 months to persevere and learn Catalan and go from zero fluency to hopefully pretty fluent. Now, some of these, to some of you, might sound like superhuman successes. But believe me, there's absolutely nothing superhuman about me whatsoever. If I can do all of these things, then you can do all of these things as well. It's just a question of improving your power of perseverance. So, there's a very simple saying. Some people say that it's from South America. Some people say it's from Buddha. Some people even attribute it to Gandalf the Grey. It's this. It's that step by step, one travels far. My challenge to you this evening is to get your backpack of perseverance, fill it full of perseverance habits, and see for yourself just how far your power of perseverance can take you.